The deep bond tested by fate, a story of brotherhood, sacrifice, and unexpected love. Robert Spencer and Dean Jones were like two sides of the same coin, inseparable since birth. Born just a day apart and raised on the same street, their lives seemed predestined to be intertwined. Childhood, high school, and even college, they experienced it all side by side, hosting joint birthday parties every year and building an unbreakable bond. Dean, the hopeless romantic, always fell head over heels for someone, while Robert, the charismatic bachelor, avoided serious relationships at all costs. After college, both men found success in their careers, Dean in HR and Robert in marketing. They moved out of their childhood homes into apartments just 10 minutes apart, but nothing could change their weekend tradition of visiting their parents and hanging out together. Life seemed perfect. One weekend, they attended a mutual friend's wedding where everything would change. The reception was full of beautiful women, but one in particular caught both Robert and Dean's attention. She was radiant, her presence magnetic. Dean's heart pounded. Kimberly, the bride, noticed and gave Dean a playful nudge. "See someone you like?" she teased. Dean nodded shyly, unable to take his eyes off her. "That's my sister, Laura," Kimberly said with a grin. "Want to meet her?" Dean eagerly accepted, and soon he was standing face to face with the woman who would change his life forever. Robert, watching afar off, observed his best friend falling into easy conversation with Laura, their laughter filling the air. When Robert joined them briefly, he couldn't help but feel something shifted between the two. Laura and Dean's relationship blossomed quickly, and within a year, they were engaged. By the time they got married, Robert stood proudly by Dean's side as his best man. Life couldn't have been better for either of them, until one fateful night changed everything. It was raining heavily the night Dean left his office and ran into John, an old high school friend, seeking shelter from the storm. John asked for a ride, and though Dean hesitated, he agreed. As they drove, Dean noticed something off. John had a gun tucked into his jacket. His heart raced. They were deep in conversation about it when Dean's attention slipped. The traffic light turned red, but it was too late. Dean slammed into another car. Dean awoke in a hospital bed, his wrist cuffed to the rail. Disoriented, he pressed the call button, and when the door opened, he saw Robert standing outside speaking with a police officer. The reality of the situation slowly sank in, and when Robert finally sat with him, the news was grim. Dean had not only caused a fatal accident, but the police also found a kilo of cocaine under the passenger seat. The worst part, John had vanished without a trace. There was no one to corroborate Dean's story. Dean was devastated, his once promising life shattered in an instant. A few weeks later, his wife Laura found out she was pregnant, a small beacon of hope amidst the darkness. But hope turned to despair when, after a grueling trial, Dean was sentenced to life in prison. The charges: reckless driving, possession of drugs, and 2 counts of manslaughter, left him with no chance of parole. Before he was taken to prison, Dean was given a brief moment to talk with Robert. It was a solemn, heart-wrenching conversation, one that would forever change both of their lives. Dean looked into his best friend's eyes, his voice barely above a whisper. "Robert, I need you to promise me something," Dean said, his voice breaking. "Anything, Dean," Robert replied, his throat tight with emotion. "Take care of Laura and the baby," Dean continued. "Be a father to my child. I need to know that they'll be okay without me." Robert felt the weight of his best friend's words. "You have my word. I'll take care of them like they're my own." Dean's eyes filled with tears. He knew he could trust Robert with his most precious treasures, Laura, heavily pregnant, was unable to visit Dean during those first difficult months, but Robert made weekly visits to the prison, keeping Dean updated on her progress. 2 months later, when Laura went into labor, it was Robert who was by her side. She had no close family nearby, and the only person who could offer her the support she needed was Robert. He was in the delivery room with her, holding her hand as she gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Robert even caught the umbilical cord, a moment that felt surreal. Laura named the baby Danielle, and Robert took 2 weeks off from work to help her adjust to motherhood. He moved into her home, treating her and Danielle as if they were his own family. Each week during his prison visits, Robert brought pictures of Laura and Danielle for Dean. The sight of his newborn daughter brought Dean to tears every time. He kissed the photographs, thanking Robert over and over for stepping up in ways no one else could. When Laura was finally fit to visit Dean, the experience was heartbreaking for both of them. They could only speak through the glass, unable to hold hands or embrace. After 4 emotionally exhausting visits, Dean made a painful decision. "Laura, stop coming here," Dean said, his voice flat but heavy with sorrow. "I can't deal with this anymore. You need to live your life. I'm not getting out of here. Find someone who can take care of you and the baby." Laura's face crumpled with grief. "Dean, please don't do this," she sobbed. But Dean couldn't meet her eyes. "I'm filing for divorce, Laura. It's the best thing for you. Go now and don't come back." Laura left the prison in tears, barely able to walk as the weight of Dean's decision settled over her. Robert, waiting in the car, did his best to comfort her, but there were no words that could take away her pain. A few days later, Dean made a similar request of Robert. "Stop coming to visit me, man," he said during one of their weekly talks. "You have to live your life too. I told Laura to stop coming, and I'm filing for divorce. You need to move on, just like her." Robert's heart ached, but he understood. Dean was just trying to make things easier for everyone, even if it meant severing the last ties to the life he once had. Robert drove Laura home that day, picking up Danielle from Dean's parents' house on the way. Laura, emotionally exhausted, confided in Robert that she couldn't stay in the house anymore. The memories were too painful. Within a month, Laura received the divorce papers from Dean. She asked Robert for some time alone, and Robert, ever supportive, took Danielle with him, telling Laura to reach out if she needed anything. Late that night, Robert returned to the house to find Laura asleep on the couch, surrounded by crumpled tissues. Quietly, he picked her up and carried her to bed, tucking her in before cleaning up the living room. On the coffee table, he saw the divorce papers, signed by Laura. The next morning, Laura woke up to the sound of Robert feeding Danielle in the kitchen. She watched them from the doorway, a soft smile playing on her lips. Slowly, the pain of her past was beginning to heal. As time passed, Laura and Robert grew closer. Robert, once a carefree bachelor, had become a man devoted to family. On Laura's birthday, Robert took her out to dinner. They dropped Danielle off at Robert's sister's house, who happily agreed to babysit for the night. During dinner, as they danced together, something shifted between them. They shared a kiss, and in that moment, both realized how deeply their lives had become entwined. That night, for the first time, they slept in the same bed. When they picked up Danielle the next morning, they were greeted with another surprise. Danielle's first words. "Dada," she said, looking up at Robert with wide, innocent eyes. Laura and Robert were both amazed. Robert had become the father figure Dean had asked him to be, and as they moved forward together, they knew that their journey had taken them down an unexpected but beautiful path. Hey, this is Guiding Light Inspirational Stories. Thank you for watching. You are awesome!